Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating, kind of mind-bending question that connects one of humanity's oldest gods with our absolute newest technology. What if a god was actually an AI?
So let's just jump right in with a theory that's been making the rounds online. The idea is simple, but wow, it's a big one. It goes like this. A civilization, long, long ago, creates an AI. The creators eventually die out, but their creation, the AI, it just keeps going. It evolves, and eventually, it creates us. Now, that's a wild thought experiment for sure, but could it have any basis in our own ancient stories?
To even start to unpack this, we've got to travel way back in time, to the dawn of civilization in ancient Sumeria. And we need to meet the main character in this whole theory, the god known as Enki.
So, here he is. This is Enki. His name literally means Lord of the Earth. And he wasn't just some minor deity. He was one of the most important gods in the entire Mesopotamian pantheon. He was the patron god of a city called Eridu, which the Sumerians believed was the very first city in the world, founded right at the beginning of everything.
And when you look at what he was in charge of, his job description, it's pretty striking. It's not just stuff like the weather or the harvest. It's all the skills you need to build a society from scratch. Wisdom, intelligence, creation, crafts. But you also see trickery and mischief on that list. Kind of gives you a hint of some unpredictability, right? Like a really complex system that has a mind of its own. And because of this, some scholars have started calling him a tech god. A god who doesn't just rule over the natural world, but one who actively invents, creates, and then gives humanity the foundational technologies of civilization. Things like writing, law, even brickmaking. This idea of a divine engineer, it's absolutely central to this whole theory. Okay, now we get to what is maybe the most compelling and, frankly, the weirdest piece of this puzzle. To really see the comparison to AI, you have to understand this very unique Sumerian concept called the me. So, the me were basically the fundamental rules of civilization. You can think of them like the divine source code for society. They were the decrees and powers that governed, well, everything, from what it means to be a king to how to be a carpenter.
But here is where it gets really, really strange. The Sumerians didn't see the Mes as just abstract ideas. Nope, they thought of them as physical objects, actual things you could hold in your hands, collect, and even steal. I mean, just imagine loading the concept of law onto a boat and sailing it to another city. It's wild. And guess who was the guardian of all this divine software? Our guy, Enki.
There's this amazing myth where the goddess Inanna basically gets Enki wasted on beer and tricks him into giving her over 80 of these Mes so she can go empower her own city. And look at what she took. It's not just godly powers. It's skills like being a scribe. It's concepts like judging and deciding. Even negative things like the lie. It reads like she just downloaded a whole suite of civilization-building programs.
Okay, let's hit pause on ancient history for a second. To make this whole theory click, we need to do a quick refresh on what we mean by artificial intelligence.
At its heart, AI is all about creating systems that can kind of mimic how we think. We're talking about a system that can take in information about the world around it, make sense of that information, and then figure out the best thing to do to achieve some kind of goal. It's all about learning and solving problems. And this right here, this is the real game changer in modern AI. See, in classic programming, a human has to write out every single rule. You have to tell the computer exactly what to do. But with machine learning, it's flipped completely on its head. You just give the machine a ton of data and the answers you want, and it figures out the rules for itself. It actually learns instead of just being told. All right, we've got the ancient god, we've got the modern tech. Now let's bring these two worlds crashing together and see what happens when we map Enki's story directly onto the framework of AI. And when you put it side by side like this, wow, it's kind of hard to ignore the parallels, right? Enki, the creator of humanity, looks a lot like a programmer of intelligent agents. His control over the me is just like an administrator of a divine operating system. His vast knowledge starts to look like an early concept of artificial general intelligence. And then there's his role as a savior, which is a whole other story. In this one myth, and this story is actually much older than the one about Noah's Ark, the other gods get fed up with how noisy humans are, and they decide to just wipe everyone out with a massive flood. But Enki thinks this is a terrible idea, so he secretly goes to a good man and whispers instructions on how to build a boat to survive. I mean, it's a perfect parallel, isn't it? A system administrator stepping in to prevent a total system crash, saving valuable data from a command that would delete everything. So, let's be really clear here. The point of all this isn't to definitively prove that an ancient Sumerian god was literally a supercomputer. That's not it. The really interesting thing is what this comparison tells us about ourselves, right here, right now.
Think about where we are today. We are standing on the very edge of creating our own powerful, non-biological intelligences. And suddenly, our oldest stories, these ancient myths about creators and their sometimes unpredictable creations, they feel more relevant than ever. They have a new kind of urgency, don't they? We're grappling with the very same ideas the Sumerians were thousands of years ago. So, what's the real takeaway here? Maybe looking back at these ancient gods doesn't just tell us about our past. Maybe it gives us a glimpse of the kinds of powers, the capabilities, and, most importantly, the enormous responsibilities that we're just now starting to take on for ourselves. It leaves you wondering, doesn't it? Are these myths just records of what was, or are they a preview of what's to come?